Last season, only 4 teams in the Premier League scored less goals than Manchester United, yet this campaign only 3 have managed to score more. United currently find themselves in the top 3 in the expected goals table and have had the second most shots in the Premier League this season, with most teams already having played one more game than United. So has Ruben Amorim actually fixed the Manchester United attack? Well, sort of. We've made progress. So as we all know by now, one of the main ways which Manchester United have got better on an attacking front is set pieces. United have been much more dangerous from set pieces so far this season and have scored some big goals in some big moments. Now, I'm actually quite a big fan of set pieces. I think they're a great opportunity to put the ball into the box unchallenged, and I would love to sit here and talk about it all day. But we did that recently in this video, which I will leave linked in the description. So in terms of the set piece front, we'll leave that for another day. But it's certainly helping United, because if you can get the first goal from a set piece, it forces the opposition to open up a little bit more, the game state changes, and that's when Manchester United can get more space to attack in open play. Okay, so time for the open play stuff, and in recent weeks we have seen a slightly different Manchester United starting 11, largely because of injuries. For example, Benjamin Sesko hasn't been available, which has forced us to sort of reshuffle our attack. However, I think it has allowed us to stumble upon a better attacking setup and a more balanced attacking setup, which I think helps. Manchester United are suddenly carrying a threat on both sides of the pitch. Earlier in the season, it felt sort of like we were reliant on Ahmad and Mbeumo, which meant that we passed the ball to them loads, and if they couldn't do something, we didn't really have anything, because on the left we had no 1-versus-1 threat. And to be honest, that's still sort of the case. If we look at these guys over on the left, none of these are players that want to pick the ball up, isolate defenders, play 1-versus-1, and dribble past people. None of them want to do that. But finally, what United have sort of done is acknowledged that and looked for a different way of attacking instead. So we are no longer seeing Dalot necessarily always just hugging the touchline, providing the width. And the reason for that is because we are starting to play with a bit more freedom down this side of the pitch, more players rotating and drifting into different zones. So rather than having one player fixed in that position, we can play with different profiles. And that's really important. The same zones are always occupied. So we're still stretching the pitch in the way that we want to, but we are testing the opposition with different types of players drifting into different zones. We've seen a lot recently and discussed a lot recently Dalot sometimes inverting into midfield, and that makes sense because it makes United more attacking. It means that Bruno and Mount end up on the attacking line. As a front 5, we've now got attacking players in the final third, which can provide more threat in terms of creativity. The other thing we've got, though, is just that license to move and to roam and to combine. We're not trying to dribble past the opposition. We're really focusing on a passing and moving game, releasing the ball and then attacking the space. We saw some really nice glimpses of this, actually against Crystal Palace a few weeks ago. United trying to knit down the left-hand side. Now, of course, it's not always working, and that's to be expected because these guys haven't played too much football with each other, particularly Mount. But I think it's providing United with a different type of threat, especially when we can get Luke Shaw joining in as well. Now, we've spoken about Luke Shaw this week, what he brings to this team and how he can do even more. We're starting to see him playing a little bit higher down the left-hand side, trying to help pin the opposition back. I still think he can do a lot more, and I think if United added that, we would find ourselves really being quite free-flowing down this side of the pitch. And I think this is sort of captured by the fact that in this position here, in this goal, it's Dalot who finds himself in the box. So he's not fixed on the touchline anymore, he's now in the box, which suits him a bit more, playing more central. Now, perhaps the best thing about this increased threat down the left-hand side is the way that it makes our right side even more dangerous, which perhaps initially doesn't make sense. Earlier in the season, we were passing to Ahmad and Mbeumo a lot. Suddenly, we're playing more down the left. So how does that help our right-sided players? How does that make us more dangerous? Well, because sometimes passing to your good players less actually makes them more dangerous, particularly in the case of wingers. You see, if the opposition know that you are always going to play down this side, it's quite easy for them to overcrowd in these positions and sort of overwhelm the likes of Mbeumo and Ahmad. They can double up on them, and it makes it difficult for them to sort of click and interchange. However, if play is built initially on the other side and you are a threat over here, the opposition can't do that. The opposition can no longer afford to have 4 players over here because suddenly they need players over here dealing with the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount. So that forces the opposition to sort of build more defenders over to this side of the pitch. But that means if now we are able to work the moment, we can actually switch it to the far side. So we're not actually building through Amad, we are eventually releasing him. And I think in recent weeks, we've seen a lot of moments where Amad has been going 1v1 against a fullback. And recently, Amad is really flowing. I said on stream the other day, I think him going to AFCON might actually be our biggest loss because he's a very unique profile in the way that he dribbles, he twists, he turns, and just touches the ball so many times whilst dribbling. It makes him a real threat, and we've seen in recent weeks him absolutely toasting some defenders. He's really good, really dangerous, really confident, but we've created that space for him by being more dangerous on the left. So our increased threat down the left side of the pitch draws more defenders over, which means when we give it to Amad, he's able to play 1v1 and has been very good at doing so. The only problem, I would say, is that it has sort of reduced the threat of Bryan Mbeumo because we haven't seen him getting as many touches of the ball, and we also haven't seen him shooting as regularly. So that's a slight concern, and definitely something that we still need to work on. Now, whilst we may not have seen Mbeumo himself in as many goal-scoring opportunities and taking as many shots, he has still been threatening for Manchester United, and that's because of the type of player that he is and the profile he is. But first, we need to look at what's been playing around him. Up front recently, United have had something very different. When we play Sesko, we used to a player playing off the shoulder, running in behind, stretching the opposition. Recently, we haven't had that. Recently, it's been either Cunha or Xerxes, and particularly in the case of Xerxes, these are very different players to Sesko. They don't want to stretch him behind, they don't want to run him behind and sort of drag the opposition's defensive line back. They want to come towards the ball, and that's absolutely fine. When you do that, you can overload the centre of the pitch, which is great. You can combine more in the middle. But ultimately, if you've got players coming towards the ball, you need to have one or two others that are willing to run away from the ball. And the reason why that's important is because it stops the opposition pushing really high. You see, if loads of people come towards the ball, let's take Cunha out. Let's say Xerxes comes towards the ball, Mount comes towards the ball, and Mbeumo comes towards the ball, Dalot comes towards the ball. Then the opposition can squeeze their defensive line really high, and it sort of puts the opposition in a more compact shape. It allows them to play closer to each other and get more pressure on the ball. However, they are unable to do that if you have someone like Mbeumo, who will occasionally stretch in behind. Someone like Diogo Dalot, who will stretch in behind and make that run. Even Bruno Fernandes. Playing deep in midfield, Bruno Fernandes has still been given that license to arrive late, running in behind the opposition, and that's when United have been able to find the ball over the top. And I think United have been really good at this. Over the past 12 months, I would say that we've been quite static, and we haven't seen enough off-the-ball runs. I think Dalot, Bruno, and Mbeumo have all been quite good at this recently. Mbeumo, naturally sort of the most threatening because he's the quickest in and almost got that sense of where the space is in the final third. He's always playing on the shoulder. But I think Dalot deserves a lot of credit as well, even if it's of course rotating as we've discussed already, but he's always willing to make that run past, and I think that's really, really useful. And again, it's where that freedom down the left comes in handy, because if Mount comes towards the ball, Dalot can go past, or if Dalot comes towards, Mount can make that run, and Bruno Fernandes as well. And I think it has made United just that little bit more threatening. Now, of course, United are far from fixed in the final third. We are not suddenly this ruthless scoring machine. Yes, we've had a lot of shots and scored a decent amount of goals, but a lot of them have still been set pieces, and we saw against Everton and West Ham that when United dominate the ball, are truly controlling possession and playing against a low block and trying to break them down, United have a real problem still. I think the games that suit us the most at the moment are the likes of Wolves and actually potentially Bournemouth coming up. Teams that try and squeeze, teams that try and get you. That's when United can combine well down the left-hand side. It's where we can isolate Amad 1v1 on the right, but also where we can find those runners over the top. When the opposition leaves that bit of space in behind the back line, I think United look a very dangerous outfit. What we need to make sure moving forward, though, is that we become a team also that can dominate the ball, that can control the ball, and break down a low block. Currently, we are still missing that. That's absolutely something that we have to work on. We have to get better. Because as United improve as a team, as we improve our threat in behind, or Amad's good at dribbling, or Sesko makes a great run, whatever, teams will adapt. More teams will come to Old Trafford and sit even deeper, just knowing that we can't break it down. They will reduce the space and go on then, come and beat us. And right now, United are poor at doing that. So that's where we need to evolve. That's the next step that we need to take. But I do think we have seen improvement. It wasn't too difficult to improve because we were terrible in attack previously. last season especially. But we are making progress, and ultimately that is what we ask for. And I think we've seen in recent weeks some different tactical ideas on display, which has made United better. So yes, ultimately progress is progress. So I am happy to see United taking steps in the right direction. Still a lot of work to do, but let's be positive. United scored 4 goals in the last game, looked very dangerous, and I'm quietly confident heading towards the Bournemouth game that United will create chances in that football match. Fingers crossed they do. But that's something that we've got to wait and see, really. For now, there is nothing left to talk about, so we're going to wrap the video up there. Thank you guys very much for watching this one. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, and get your notifications on so you never miss an upload. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.